We're certainly glad to have Brother Robert Martin here with us. I was with them a number of years ago on their mission forum. By the way, they're having a mission forum at Forest Park starting next Friday, is it? Wednesday. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't have the dates on that. But anyway, they start on Wednesday down at Forest Park, Georgia. And they have been doing this a number of years. And when we were going to have this one, I called Brother Steve and tried to get a little bit of advice. I said, this is the first one for me and for us, and I'd like some advice. And he gave me some good advice. But I remember being there with them, and I enjoyed going out with Brother Martin and his wife, and maybe there was someone else with us on that occasion. And we had some Vietnamese food. His wife likes Vietnamese food, and I like food. I don't care who prepares it. And so I fit right in with that. And so we enjoyed that. He is married to his high school sweetheart. As I mentioned, her name is Mary. They have been married for 54 years now. They have 4 children. He said all of his children grew up on the mission field. He has 8 grandchildren and then 4 great-grandchildren. He's been preaching the gospel now for 52 years. 7 of those years, he's been a missionary also for 50 years. He has been 7 years as a missionary here in the States, and then 43 years also overseas, and he can tell us a little bit more about that and is going to do so. He works with that Forest Park congregation that I mentioned. That's the one in Forest Park, Georgia, but they have overseen his work now for 43 years. I think that says that's some stability, and that says something about Brother Martin also, and that they are willing to stand behind him, and I always appreciate his report. Look forward to getting it. He does a good job, and I'm glad that he's here with us today, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say. Brother Robert.
It is a joy and a privilege for me to be here for many reasons. First of all, to have the opportunity to be over-fellowshipped with one of my elders. We have just come out of a elders mission team retreat that we have every 2 years, and we were together all of this past week. Planning for the future, talking about what we've tried to accomplish, and looking at the many opportunities that we have before us. It is also a joy to be here at your very first World Mission Seminar. It is a joy. The first that I was a part of, we had some great old Sea Dog missionaries that had already spent many years in the mission field. I was in the mission field in Williamston, South Carolina. And one of the speakers we had was Brother Ira Rice. And he had already influenced Mary and I greatly in doing foreign mission work. And he had tried to sell us on the idea of going to Four Seas Bible College and teaching and working with it. We were on a mission field. Our attendance ran about 60 to 65. We had grown from our own living room. And Brother Rice had a way of making you feel like you needed to give to mission work. And he did not apologize any time about that. And so he convinced this mission-filled congregation who was struggling, and by the time he left with a $2,000 check. And in 1969, that was a lot of money, believe me. It was also a joy for Mary and I to be a part of the first World Mission Forum at Forest Park in Atlanta. It is called the Atlanta World Mission Forum. We were on that first forum as stateside mission workers. The one coming up that will start Wednesday is number 46. It is the oldest consecutively running mission forum, our mission workshop in the Brotherhood. Now, some have started and stopped and started back, but this is one that is aged, believe me. There are many that start but do not continue. There are some of these brochures on the Memphis School of Preaching table. If there are any left, you're welcome to them. I also laid a few of these. This is our Pacific Islands Bible College catalog. And we're not in competition, since we're halfway around the world nearly, we're not in competition with the Memphis School of Preaching, but rather teaching and training in the Pacific. There are some of these also, if there are any left, on the table. It did not take me long to know that you have a Samoan in your presence. And it brought great joy to my heart, because it allows me to pull up my Samoan, since we lived in Fiji 10 years. And then we lived in American Samoa, where Tangilima and Athena are from. We lived in their village. My second to the oldest son, Mark, went to school, same school Athena went to. And so we have a lot in common. It does allow me, and my mind goes Samoan sometimes when you're calling on someone to lead prayer. I'm just about ready to say Tato Ifama Tatalo in their own language. And so it is good to see that you are reaching so far away. As I begin to talk about our work, just a few things that I would like to say before I do. To those who are in the audience, may I encourage you to listen very carefully, and also to use your eyes to see things hopefully a little bit deeper. Because by hearing and seeing, and if you will think about what you're hearing and what you are seeing, you'll learn a lot of things about, I could use that big word, missiology, but just about mission work. One of the first things that I would like to say is, no matter where we are in the world, I would encourage us and plead with us that we always hold on to that old Jerusalem gospel, the truth of the gospel, the Malolale, Lima, that we always hold on very tight to it. Above all other things, that must be paramount. Like I said in my presentation, please listen and watch carefully. And try your very best to watch for methods in mission work. You know, we always can learn. Amen? We always can learn from those that have gone before us. Valuable things that we may be able to do a better job for God. I want to also say in the very front Don't ever put your feet in concrete in missiology methods. Don't do it. They are matters of judgment and opinion. So don't ever put your feet in concrete with methods. We are using methods today that sometimes scare me to death nearly because they are so great, new methods we have. In communication and other things. And so don't put your feet in concrete. My grandfather used to say, when things did not go so good, he would say, son, we don't need to ride this dead horse. And in the area of methods in missiology, do not ride a dead horse. You will defeat the cause of Christ rather than advancing it. I want to be sure to say things that will help you. In 1973, after 7 years of mission work in the Carolinas, my family and I moved to Fiji. And by the time we had completed our second year, we had planted 15 congregations in the Fiji Islands. Throughout all the 2 major islands, and it even began to go to others. By 1975, I began to dream, and when I shared that dream with Mary, she said, have you lost your mind? Because I said, Mary, between Hawaii and Papua New Guinea and Indonesia and the Philippines, New Zealand and Australia down under to Japan, do you realize we are the only missionary in the Pacific Islands? Now that did not include the Philippines. And some of those that we count more like Asia. And she said, I know it, but I still think you've lost your mind. But I said to her that we are going to do our very best with God's help, number one. And all that I am going to say in this presentation, I want to give God all the honor and the glory and the praise. 1 Corinthians 3 and 5, Paul says, we are ministers. I love that Greek word. It really means servants or slaves, by which others believe. So we begin to develop a plan. The challenge before us in the Pacific, in that area between Hawaii and Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, New Zealand and Australia down under, all the way to Japan, was 22 countries in the Pacific, 30,000 islands, and more like 8 million people. And so we began. We could see that we had an opportunity. And we knew that it would be a great challenge. I shared this plan with one of our elders that Billy knows well, Brother John Maynard. And he said, son, do you know how to eat an elephant? You've heard it, haven't you? But I'm from Alabama. I got crimson in my blood. And so we are the elephants. And so I know how to eat an elephant. Just one bite at a time. And so we could see the opportunity. I convinced Mary first, and then our elders that we can do this. We started to pray about it. Before we ever presented it to our elders, we started praying. Not only did we start praying, but we began to plan. I knew that in springing this on our elders, that I'd need to have thought this out well, and that it would be workable. So when Brother John Maynard, Brother Richard Hart came to Fiji, I presented the plan. And then after the elder said, Robert, sick 'em. That is, get to it. Then we began to start to prepare ourselves. We had made great progress in Fiji, but we still needed to make much more progress. And so I was very careful to target a country close by. Lima, it was the island of Upolu in Samoa. Outside of Fiji, we went eastward to Samoa. Then we began to go first to Samoa, then after Samoa to American Samoa, then from American Samoa to Tonga. And then we began to find other missionaries that would join us on the field. If we really wanted to carry this plan all the way out, we knew that we could not do it by ourselves. And in order to cut me loose from one area to go to another area, I need to find missionaries. Begin to find them. Brother Carl Johnson, who had spent 15 years in India, found Brother Don Thornton, a school teacher, convinced him to come to American Samoa. And then we continued the process. So we started to go. We had a plan for evangelizing. It was I thought and still think, well, I don't think, I know it is. It is a God-given plan. Now, methods, don't put your feet in concrete. Don't ride a dead horse. But if you want a tried, proven, and tested plan, here it is right in the Scriptures. In Acts chapter 14, beginning at verse 21, and when they had preached the gospel to that city, isn't that evangelism? Then it says that they returned again to Lystra and Iconium and Antioch, confirming or strengthening the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. Isn't that edification? Isn't that the work of edification? And then thirdly, and when they had appointed elders in every city, brethren, elders that just happen are waiting on a disaster. That shows me that there were men that were equipped to be elders. And from necessary inference, I believe it suggests they had been equipped for that work. And so we had the plan. I was convinced it was a God-given, and am convinced it was a tried, proven, and tested plan. Brother Rice used to tell me, I was still younger then, and he used to say to me, Robert, the first time I ever heard of the 3 E's was that you were giving a report. He said, coin that statement and don't ever lose it. Isn't that what the mission of the church is all about? Evangelism, edification, and equipping. But we knew that to go to these 22 countries, 30,000 islands, and 7 million people, that we would need to fine-tune this plan. We knew what the plan really promoted. It promoted the idea of taking the gospel. Isn't that what the work of the church is? Of taking the gospel. And then it was to plant. And brethren, we need to really lock in on this. Plant indigenous churches. We need to start that concept from the first conversion. And then we will be able to go on and on and on, and we will be able to say we have carried the gospel to every person in the world. Brethren, if we don't adopt this approach, we're in serious trouble. And by indigenous, I'm talking about those congregations that will be able to reproduce themselves. But not only that, but to govern themselves, and they'll be able to support themselves. Brethren, there ought to be a time when we move on to a new area, country, city, town, or villages. Brethren, I know churches in the Carolinas that have been supported for 52 years, and they are still no closer. Now, we can close our eyes to it. We can close our ears to it, and we can say, Brother Robert's being a little bit too hard. Brethren, if we spend all of our money in one area, we'll never evangelize the world. You know the best thing that ever happened to that church that Mary and I had planted in Williamston, South Carolina, was having that very first World Mission Workshop. And having Brother Ira Rice and others. And Brother Ira Rice convincing them, you're bigger than this mission field, and walking away with a $2,000 check. Brethren, it was the greatest thing, and that church never did look back. Now, we will use many tools to get the job done. We will use many methods. We don't need to ride a dead horse. You've caught on to that. Where are you going to go on a dead horse? Nowhere. We do not need to put our feet in concrete. But brethren, we need to be very careful in the methods and missiology that we use. I have a paramount principle that I always use. Jesus said, be as wise as serpents, and harmless as dove. Forget the gadgets and the gimmicks, and use the gospel as the drawing power. But open your mind to many methods in missiology. But as you do, use that wisdom. One of the things that's, let me just say that others say that have made the work that we've done in the Pacific effective, that's their words, effective, a success. I'll let God judge it. That's not my problem. Mine is to work and to be a servant of the Lord. But from the very beginning, we have always used many co-workers. If you think you're going to do all the work by yourself, or you and your wife, you're only fooling yourself. You will limit your progress for the Lord and your effectiveness. Don't do it. Use many co-workers. Now, some of you know that on our mission team at Forest Park, we are made up of 4 co-workers. Myself and Mary, Randy and Sharon English, Stacy and Kathy Ferguson, Ren's father, and then also Brother Joey Treat and his wife Tammy. Now there are others that have come and they're in different fields of work now. But even beyond that, just in the work that Mary and I do and are responsible for, we will use 15 to 20 co-workers every year. And that can be duplicated to some degree, by our other co-workers that I have just mentioned. I love 2 Corinthians 6:1. We are workers together with God. Isn't that beautiful? What an honor and what a privilege. Now, you're going to see a division in our work. A division of evangelizing, edifying, and equipping. And I'm going to go through this. I love telling stories about the mission field. I love saying Serekivakandran and Jovalisi Rakambiti and talking about those people, many others, over the last 43 years in the Pacific. But how many of you are going to go back and remember those names? Not a one of you. So I'm going to be more generic and get the very first objective. As we go into every country, every city, every village or cluster of villages, is to reach the masses. We do it, number one, by the printed page. The printed page is still the most effective means in the Pacific Islands. House to house, heart to heart. Now we have reached the point that we are doing special editions every month with at least one article in the local language of that place. Then also the Voice of Truth International. We are also very blessed that at Forest Park that we have 2 digital printers. And they are clacking away, running every single day. Printing tracts, Bible correspondent courses we'll use, personal work soul winning material we will use, tract packets and tracts to go in those tract packets, and Bible correspondent courses, songbooks, sermon books, and many other things as well. We're blessed. We have the resource and we have the manpower, our men and women power. And so we are very equipped to do it. One of our effective programs is the distribution of tract packets. Put us in an area, give me 8 or 10, 12 workers, put them there for maybe 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours at the most, and we're going to give out over 1,000 tract packets. Now think about the gospel going into people's hands like that. Then we will, at the same time, simultaneously giving out the tract packets, we will enroll people in Bible correspondent courses. Listen to me carefully. Are you listening? We've got one brother, Brother Dick Welber, at Forest Park. He has over 1,500 Bible correspondent course students. That's just one man. And so we are teaching the Bible to thousands of people by Bible correspondent courses. And then Brother Randy English heads up our Pacific Broadcast Network. We've come all the way from 1 radio station to 8. Are you listening? From 1 to 8. And we're going to blanket eventually the entire Pacific. Brother Joey Treed, another one of my co-workers, he has started a TV station in Palau. And that station will continue to reach out to many other people. But you know one thing you can never replace? You'll never be able to replace all those foot soldiers. Giving out tract packets, enrolling people in Bible correspondent courses, setting up Bible studies. We know that if we plant, we water, that God will give the increase. We have continued to plant the Lord's church. Brethren, if we sow the seed, we plant the church, we don't start it. The Lord did that. Throughout the Pacific Islands. Without me going into detail, from country to country in the Pacific. Brothers, I'm trying to advance it. Okay, we got it. The second area of our work is evangelism, or edification rather. Brethren, many years ago, Mary and I tried something we thought would work. And that is, everyone that we taught the gospel to and baptized, if they buy into it, we brought them to the point that they could duplicate the process again. You know what that did? That added to our manpower. It finally started multiplying it, and we have done it very effectively. Now, Lima, keep your eyes on this one. Not only are we doing it individually, but we also do it congregationally. Yes, even among those older churches. Sometimes they'll say, Brother Robert and Sister Mary, you've not been back to us in many years. We need to be edified and strengthened, just like those younger churches. But we can hold them off a little while. And so we do a lot of this as well, even to the older congregation, edifying, strengthening, encouraging them. We do many workshops every year for men, Christian men, women, and children. Now, among the men and women, it is in their respective biblical roles: leadership, soul winning, preachers. We do a number of these workshops in teaching and training in this area. And then an area that we are very proud of is that of encouraging through all these years. We don't build their buildings for them. We will share in it to some degree, but they build their own buildings. And it is one area of our work that allows us to not get bogged down and to go on and on. Mary, I could talk about her forever since I've been married to her so long, but she is a sweetheart. She's a great soul winner. She never, and if you met her, you'd say, man, she's so humble and gentle, but she never meets a stranger. So she's just a great soul winner. You know, we have missionaries that have either worked on or today are serving on as missionaries 5 continents of the world. And that lady has been a part of training them as well. This lady is respected like the mother of many younger ladies in the Pacific. Now, 20 years ago, we started Pacific Islands Bible College. We knew when we started it, we had to start it very unique. We're not in like Asia or Europe or Africa or either South America linked through the Panama area and other areas. We are on 22 island countries, and the closest 2 countries are 450 miles apart by water. So what we said is this: we are going to build our own filming studio. And what we're going to do is that we're going to carry the courses to the students. We will carry the courses to the students in the classroom. We offer 26 Bible and church-related courses. We offer it by being in the classroom with them somewhere in the Pacific, and we will use 25, 30 instructors every year between us, me and Brother Stacy Ferguson. We also have built our own filming studio. We have our own editing department, and there are areas in the Pacific where there's no electricity. So we knew that we would need to add people could take the courses by correspondence. So 3 ways that we offer courses: in the classroom, by DVD, and that may change in the near future, and then by correspondence. What are we doing? We're teaching, we're training, and we are maturing. Now, why is PIBC so unique? Because it's effective. I can say for the Pacific Islands, it is very effective, very effective. We are unlimited in the number of students we can teach and train. There is no campus to build, and there is no campus to maintain. Number two, it is very economical the way we've set up the college. It is economical because the students never have to be transported to another country. There are no students to house and to feed and to support. And then thirdly, PIBC for us in the Pacific is very efficient in teaching and training. The students never leave their country. They never leave their job. The students continue to worship and serve in the congregation where they are. Now, we are very blessed. We have grown from one country to 12 countries, from one location to 26 different locations. Lima, I was in Samoa when that was shot. Needless to say, with the Il Lava Lava on, I was in Samoa when that was shot. We teach over 550 students yearly. Think about that. What if we had the college located in just one country? We'd never be able to bring more than, because we're not a landlocked area, there would be visas, immigration security bonds on every student, bringing them there, the cost would get so high. We could never have over 20 or 25 students that we would be able to teach and train. We have 25 instructors that come from the States, and every one of these men, we can depend on them faithfully to teach that old Jerusalem gospel, to teach the truth of the gospel. And we're thankful for those. We've got men that's been teaching 60 years, over 50 years, and just across the spectrum. And we're thankful. Every year, there are those students who graduate. Now, what is PIBC doing? I love 2 Timothy 2:2. And really, Mary and I started using this all the way back in Fiji. Paul said to Timothy, please listen carefully, what I have taught you, you teach others, that they'll in turn be able to teach others also. You know what? By necessary inference, you've probably got there at least 5 generations in that statement, and even more. Men and women that will become soul winners. Men that will be able to teach men's Bible classes. Women that will be able to teach effectively women's Bible classes. Teaching workshops. Men that will become preachers. Men that will become radio speakers. And yes, across the Pacific, now we're beginning to appoint elders in congregations. But you know what? Here's something we need to never forget. And that is how we're going to meet this challenge. How we're going to accomplish this task. 22 countries, 30,000 islands, and over 7 million people flung across that Pacific area. How are we going to do it? How are we going to accomplish this task? How are we going to get the gospel to every island, every village, every town, every city, every person? You know, by passing it on. Think about what Paul said to Timothy. What Paul said to Timothy, what I've committed to you, you commit to faithful men that will be able to teach others. Brethren, if we don't pass it on, we are defeated before we go any farther. But we someday, and I believe we're very near, if not really there, that we can say that the gospel is being preached to every person under the heavens. Stop and think. Just stop and think seriously for a minute. All the missionaries, all the ones across the world that they are teaching and training. You know, God has blessed us so much. Where I have reached one, and I pray it's more than one, but just illustration point. Whereas I have reached one, that one has reached 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 more. And each one of those have reached others. May God help us to not defeat ourselves, and that we will pass it on and on and on. And there will never be an end to it. I could tell you that in the larger churches that run 100, 115, that there are 10 or 15 men preaching in these churches. Isn't that wonderful? They never get without teachers. They never get without preachers, because not just one person mounts that pulpit. And they're passing it on now, like in Fiji, we're down to the 3rd and 4th generation of passing it on. To Billy, to the elders here, and to the Memphis School of Preaching. You tell my age, I don't use abbreviations very well. To all of you students, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you this day, even with a croaky voice I've had to be careful with. Thank you.
Well, I believe he did very effectively communicating God's word, even with a croaky voice, if he has one there, but we appreciate it. You know, we're training these men to the best of our ability in the indigenous method, just like the Apostle Paul did, and going and doing mission work. And I've struggled a little bit, to tell you the truth, on how do we involve ourselves in these works and yet not take it over. You want to be able to move on. And so I came up with the idea that they're going to be indigenous, but we still cooperate. I think cooperation is what we've studied today, but yet also we have seen that they are self-supportive, they are self-propagating, just like when Paul went into mission fields. When Paul left a work, that work would continue even when he was not there. And so if we're going to evangelize the world, I believe we have to do it like they did in New Testament times. And so appreciate it, Brother Martin. I tell you what, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. There's coffee over there in the other room, if you would like to have one. And then we will come back, and the last session that we have in here will be by Brother Steve Weiss, and we're going to be talking about, or he is, elders and world evangelism. And I think, again, this is a very important topic. He's one of the elders at Forest Park, and so he will have some insight that will be very helpful to us. So thank you, and you're dismissed until 10 after.